Alright guys, I'm back. Big Dog's back. Now, I was just thinking, and I was gonna look up stuff with WWE, and why should I? It is what it is, always. There's nothing ever different. I mean, if you want any specific, you want me any kind of commentary, anything specific, leave a comment below, and I will get to it. But for now, this is just gonna be a long TNA video. So, let's get started. I wrote to TNA for the first time in a while. Used to write to them all the time, tell them what I'd like to see, what I enjoy as a fan. I'm not telling them how to run their business, but I am, as a fan, telling them what I'd like to see. It's like if you go into a grocery store and decide, oh, I'd like you to carry this product, and then you go up and say, yeah, would you carry this one? And they say, sure. So, this is my letter to TNA, and I'm going to go ahead and post down here the entire thing, all of it in its entirety, and you can read it as I read through it too. So, let's get started. Dear TNA and Dixie Carter, I am writing as a longtime TNA fan. I have been following TNA since the Fox Sports days and went away for a while. Then I came back around when Sting signed in 2005. In 2007, you made my dream come true, getting to see Sting for the first time live. I've been a wrestling fan since I was 3 years old. And as a fan who is set to go to wrestling camp in the near future, I appreciate and respect the opinions, writing, and production of those more experienced than me. However, as a fan, I feel it is in the best interest of your company and the wrestling business to speak out on the quality of TNA wrestling at the moment. TNA is at one of its major turning points once again. Keep in mind, before I continue, this is an older letter, a couple weeks old. The ECW invasion angle seems set to be set and ready to go for the most part. But since I have not written a letter to you in a while, I thought it would be good to let you know my current position on your product. As such, I will break my opinions down into different subjects. The announcing is number one. TNA's announcing has always been a source of unrest among internet wrestling fans, ever since Don West's early announcing. With that said, I enjoyed Mr. West's work in his last couple of months as color commentator. The current team of Mike TNA and Peter Taz Senerchia has been acceptable in their role, but they do not give the product a push so much as excuse me, I wrote the letter wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and muddle through it I think you can get what it's saying. So much so as to have mid-match conversations and joke fests. The entire point of announcing is to give us insight into the reasons why we should care about certain talents and give us the backstory to what we're currently watching. That being said, I would like to suggest a crackdown on back and forth joking and focus more on stories currently occurring in and out of the ring, and the backstory and statistics of the matches. I am not opposed to occasional jokes, and I'm not ever upset with Mike and Taz having fun at their jobs. But when your product suffers and the fan is left out of the constant yuck between the two, I personally feel alienated from the action. On your current Explosion production, you have Jeremy Borash and Taz calling the action. This is good and gives Mike TNA a much-needed break. However, for the purpose of seeing what works and doesn't, I'd like to suggest a few different two-person lineups for Impact, Explosion, and the like. Jeremy Borash and Brother Ray. I think Brother Ray would be an exceptional color man. Jeremy Borash and Christy Hemme. Mike TNA and Jeremy Borash. Jeremy Borash and Don West. Continuing on to number 2, the ECW angle. This angle has the interest of the wrestling world at the moment. It has people talking. However, one of my issues with the story is the way it opened. It seems the only reason we saw Tommy Dreamer for weeks in advance was to give Brother Ray a reason to job to Jesse Neal, and to give us something else to watch during the throwaway knockout matches. If you really wanted to make an impact, Tommy Dreamer, Raven, Rhino, and Stevie Richards should have shown up the night of the brawl. That would shock people. And while this was interesting, it really lessened the shock factor. Also, I have heard there was a lot more to the angle than was shown on TV. Now, while I appreciate the fact that you only have so much TV time, the Knockouts promo went extremely long, and honestly, a couple of those matches weren't worth the title of total non-stop action. My next issue with the angle is the all-ECW pay-per-view we're hearing about. I beg you that it isn't true. Of course, it is. The pay-per-view will not be bought just because of the fact that it will be a rehash of what has already been seen in ECW in the past. Now, I am going to go ahead and retract that because I have seen a lot of interest in people wanting to buy this, but it is strictly a nostalgia show. Where was I? Yes, I'll edit this out. Not to mention all of your current talent that is missing that are missing out on work. However, there is one story that I see that can rectify this. That story is to have TNA wrestlers, especially those who have been with the company for half of its run or more, to be extremely angry with Dixie and demand an all TNA pay-per-view and no surrender, with a 6-sided ring, Ultimate X, 6 sides of steel, and King of the Mountain to top it all off. They want to show Dixie that they're the ones she should be putting stock into. Then you have Dixie undecided after 2 pay-per-views, so she books TNA vs. ECW at Bound for Glory, and headlining is Angle vs. RVD for the TNA title and control of TNA. While the story may seem somewhat short, you may be able to do more after Bound for Glory as long as you don't blow the whole thing off at BFG. Number 3, the X Division. The X Division has been missing its luster for a long time now. Our current main feud is Brian Kendrick and Douglas Williams. Both of these competitors bore the heck out of me. And while I appreciate Doug's character as a heel in the X Division who won't high fly, Brian Kendrick just isn't the one to take him on. This is all happening while you have one of the greatest heels in the business on your roster, or so I assume he's still there. Homicide. Homicide is an incredible talent who takes all honor out of the honorable and sports-like X Division. And you have one of the best high flyers in the world, high-flying wrestlers on your roster. I again assume he's still with the company. Amazing Red. Red got a lot of hate during the Don West era, but when you put him up against Kurt Angle, what happened? Everyone loved it. Red never was and never will be a talker. So don't have him talk. Have him take the fight to Homicide. Now, just putting these two together will not revitalize your frankly dead X Division. There needs to be guys like Hernandez competing. Maybe even Daphne or some of the Knockouts. The X Division is about no limits. Anyone can compete. Along with that, I'd suggest bringing a few stars into it to make it bigger, such as the hardly now used AJ Styles. I would have Ric Flair send him to the X Division just to get gold. AJ would see it as a demotion, but then realizes how solid the X Division is right now. That's a great story right there. Also, after this current Kurt Angle story with him climbing the ladder to the World Championship, Kurt in the X Division would be incredible. He's only a little bit